Oh, look, it's Monday. Bring it in our little Zoom from quarantine show. Dina's got the dancing hands going. How's everybody doing?
Hanging in there, hanging in there.
was good.
Apparently have a lot of Netflix shows to catch up on, according to y'all.
Yeah, I know there's a lot. You got your work cut out for you. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do.
Not doing it.
Well, it's Monday, which means it's TrueHoop special correspondent Adena Jones in the house. Would you like to share some insight with us?
Well, a little bit over the weekend, I voted, so that was fantastic.
Oh, congratulations.
So everybody, I don't think we say that enough on the show. I don't really think we emphasize like government and democracy and civil duty on the show. I'm joking. So really fucking go out and vote, please.
And then find any podcast or article that contains quotes from Stacey Abrams. I did that this morning. I texted my wife who's in Houston right now, and they're doing Hill Country tomorrow with her sister for a 4-hour drive, and that's going to be at least one beautiful hour of that drive over there. Is listening to her just makes you smile.
Yeah, and she's all about voter suppression and talking about what it is and how it's real. Necessarily mail-in ballot fraud is not real, but voter suppression, that is super real. I mean, it's even suppressed by like, I have 2 degrees and I still was filling out my mail-in like, what?
Oh, totally.
I was like, wait, am I doing this fucking wrong? I hope I wasn't.
Both of our twins. My daughter drove here when we met her in between to make sure she went through it the right way. And my wife told me on her agenda today, even though she's on vacation, is to do that with my son who can't come in town. He's busy. So they're going to go through the ballot. And we're not telling him. We know how he's going to vote for president. But the other things, he can do whatever he wants. As anything, he can do what he wants. He just doesn't want to screw up. He wants to understand the policies, and he doesn't have time to look into it. But we did it for them. Yeah.
Did you guys see that Shaq? It was his first time voting.
I did not see that.
Shaq recorded that this was his first time voting, and then he went through voter registration, and the immediate reaction is to chastise people. Snoop also, it's his first time voting too. He thought that because he was a felon, he couldn't vote. And then I will say there was a bit of apathy, right? Like when you're rich and you think the government works fine for you, and even though he understands where he came from, you're either rich or you didn't care, or like you were an athlete and it wasn't on the top of your
or you don't believe in it, or you don't believe in the system, right? You don't.
You don't. And so like it was discouraging to hear about Shaq, but then it was just like, yo, there's so many people like him, and all we need to do is like push them forward to do this and take this step. That's how important it is.
There's one other thing, which is our country has never wanted Black men or women to vote.
Yep.
I mean, that's very, very obvious in the way, and Stacey talks about these kinds of things. So obviously Shaq should have been more aware of things given his situation, same as Snoop, but historically speaking, this is what they wanted. This system is designed that way to make you not want to do it, make it hard to do it in a sense.
And I mean, we heard about the NCAA and how like kids didn't get time off to vote, right? Like, and on top of all the other things, how are you're normally as a student athlete, you're taken out of the place where you are registered to vote, your hometown, and you're placed somewhere else. How are you supposed to go find a ballot? What do you do? I don't have time for that. I got to go practice, right? And so this year, the NCAA is giving the kids a time off. And
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and teaching them also how to register to vote. Same thing like Chris Paul, got a large percentage of the NBA to vote, because these are your formidable years, right? 18, we're like, okay, I want to buy cigarettes. I want to go into the casino and I want to vote. Like, that's what we're doing. And so if you take that away from us from 18 to about 21 for those 4 years, why would we think it's important moving forward, right? And I think that happens to a lot of athletes. And then they get into the NBA. Once again, you're moving. What is your assistant gonna figure out how to register to vote for you? And it's just too much.
What's better, cigarettes or voting?
I would say voting. I didn't.
I'll tell you what else. I mean, this is a huge. So when successful millionaire athletes are in the public, they usually don't like talk about things they did badly, right? They don't have to. So I like Charles Barkley, hats off. He's always making fun of himself. Like, and it's really hard. It's not common. Like ESPN doesn't employ anyone who's like that, right? But the fact like that, who he play for thing is hilarious, right? Like,
oh my gosh.
I would
Barkley, right? So Shaq to me too, like I think Shaq can already predict. He can write the tweets in response about like, oh, you should have been voting, blah blah. But no, but to say, hey, look, I'm doing a pivot here. I did it wrong, and I'm doing it right. Like we need more of that. Like,
yeah,
like,
and
way more.
it encourages other people to be like,
Absolutely.
yo, I'm fallible too. Like a friend of mine, she was gonna just take the easy road out. She moved from Connecticut where she worked at ESPN, and she's in New York now. And there was a lot of confusion, and she could have just been like, you know what, I'll wait it out. And I told her, I was like, yo, I will drive you to Connecticut if you need be. Like, this is not a game. And hearing that other people messed up or didn't have the registration, she ended up doing some kind of like non-voter ID thing in New York State. And now she is registered to vote in New York State because she took the extra step. So like, we're all fuck ups and we all are fallible, just like Shaq. Even Superman's fallible.
Even Superman.
Exactly. All right. So clips. I would say, I'm not gonna lie, I thought things were gonna be far and few and in between since we've had a chip and folks are kind of, I don't want to say sleepy, right? But NBA players are still going at it. I think they're some of the most entertaining players that we have in professional sports. So this video right here, JaVale McGee got some really cool behind the scenes footage post-championship. Here it is. Oh, wait.
Oh, this is their plane?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back.
What's up, champ?
What's going on? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? You know, what's good with you, champ?
What's up, champ? What's up, champ?
Feel like we've been outside. Hey, been outside.
We free. Oh, AC.
Hello? Yeah, I got places to be. All right, let's get it.
AC said he got places to be.
Time out. Only thing is, why did AC dial a fake phone when he had like a real phone in his hand? That was a question I had, but continue.
Okay.
What is 2020 NBA champs?
Don't ever forget it. It's the end of the year I had. Yeah. Y'all would love that story. You know what I'm saying? They counted me out. They tried to, you know what they tried to do. They tried to sabotage cheese. Mm-hmm. I'm not Philly cheese. No. I'm not bubble cheese. No. Call me double C.
Double C.
I'm champ cheese.
Champ cheese.
Mr. Bet on yourself and double the down. They talking about champ who was there when we was there, bro, starving, huh? Champ cheese. What's your baby?
Man, listen, man. They keep counting me out. I don't know what else they want me to say.
Double down. Did you double down or not?
I quadrupled down on myself. Hey. If I doubled down on myself, I'd have been going a long time ago.
Okay, so either J.R. Smith was crying a lot, or
maybe just is up for 3 straight days.
Yeah, that too. I'm just gonna give him the benefit of a doubt. Here, I love double C. Then he's not Philly cheese, he's not bubble cheese, he's champ cheese. Just some unfiltered happiness on JaVale McGee's YouTube from the champs right afterwards. Next up, of course, when you're not in a bubble in your home, what are you doing? TikTok with your kids. Rondo.
I think I'm full.
And then next up, have any of you guys TikTok?
Oh my God, Rick Carlisle?
Yes. I was gonna say, seeing Rick was like, Coach, I might need to see you do a TikTok, or you.
When my daughter's home for Thanksgiving, whatever she wants.
Yes, please do. So Rondo on a TikTok, and then now Coach.
She said, what you know about love? I tell you everything, I got what you need. Woke up in the store and get what you want, go get it. You get what you please, we about to get it.
Everyone was like, this is the most casual outfit they've ever seen. Like, is this what you just like wear around the house? You're just cash.
That's what every teenage, well, now my daughter's 19. Every girl the last 4 years that have been over here with my daughter have worn sweatshirt and sweatpants like that. And it's 90 fucking degrees in Florida for 5 months a year. It doesn't matter.
What about Rick Talk though?
Yeah,
Rick Talk.
It says Rick Talk. Rick Talk.
Like that.
Rick Talk, yeah, that's really cool.
That outfit is very like, I mean, I wear it here obviously, but it's like cold. So I don't know why they're wearing it out in Florida. It's all about the comfy
Don't we
situation.
need to talk about his outfit a little?
Just a little bit. I mean,
You might have been golfing and just took a belt off.
He's tucking in he's wearing 2 shirts. One of them is a polo. They're both tucked in.
Oh,
yeah. It just seems really, really tight for in the house, you know? Quarantine, so.
He's a Jim Carrey clone.
Speaking of Jim Carrey, SNL, hilarious. If anybody hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
About to get it.
Watch it one more time. Josh Hart, apparently I was like, wait, is this a tweet from my husband or what? He says, my girlfriend's in bed at 9 p.m. I feel like I dated grandma. I was like, I'm sure she has great skin and she has a lot of energy and she wakes up on time to work out. So
give it a couple decades, Josh Hart. Yeah.
My mom never goes to sleep for 1, 2 in the morning, and she's going to be 79 in November. So not all grandmas go to sleep at 9.
It's disrespectful to grandmas. I know I do. I about 8:30 or so. My friends on the West Coast will text me, and I'm like, dog, I'm old. Like, I have TrueHoop to wake up for. Come on.
Yeah.
Meta World Peace. This is this was his quote after. Sorry, it's not Meta World Peace anymore. I'm sorry. When did I miss this?
I didn't know about it. Meta
stand for our test. Did he send out a about this? Anyway,
let's do a whole show on that later.
I know. I was like, he says, I was just home and sparked a blunt. I don't even know, maybe 10. I deserved it. I felt like I won. This is our test on celebrating the Lakers championship. Always unfiltered. Thank you, Meta. Feel like you and our J.R. Smith might have been together doing this probably. Moving forward. So I texted the group about this earlier. The Denver Nuggets tweeted this. Let's hear them. Who's in your favorite, it says, who's in your favorite Nugget of all time? And Carmelo Anthony is not in this image. We have Nick Van Exel, we got Mutombo, English, Joker, and Billups, right? And the thing about it is, like, as being a social media person, like, listen, you can't get everybody. You can't get everybody in the graphic, right? But you also know you have, like, the case of recency, right? Like, you want to put, obviously, Joker in there, but you also want to put, like, Carmelo Anthony in there. And the internet was pretty upset. And I know Henry cares when I say the internet, right? He really cares. Whoever the internet is, even Premier League responded. Actually, let me share my screen one more time. The Premier League responded. It says,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they're like, Carmelo Anthony is the best. And then it was like the fact that he was less somebody's like, you put Chauncey, y'all are salty. You put Brick Van Exel in there. He only played 3 seasons. But
none of them asked to leave.
No, that's the thing. I think it's like no one has to leave. And I think
Melo wanted out.
Well, yeah, and that's where people were leaning towards. It was like, y'all are salty, right? Like, he still stayed and waited, but like, I think the Nuggets organization being a social media manager, you get calls from on high. Like, one time I worked at the NBA, and I was told the Knicks couldn't be on the front page of NBA.com at some point in time, like, because of all the controversy, right? So it's like, you get calls from on up high. Maybe Melo is not to be featured in anything and you just doing your job. But what I thought was interesting, after Melo was actually trending that day, and then of course Melo comes back with the always timely, thoughtful but shady caption: a flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blossoms. And I'm like, thank you, Sensei Melo. This came just right after that post. And at first I was like, wait, was Melo not as good as I thought he was on the Nuggets? And of course I went back to Basketball Reference and, top 10 for them in points per game, in 3 points. And so, in 3-pointers made. So I think it was just probably a call from on high. But
Chauncey's from Denver, went to George Washington High School in Denver. Yeah. So that's why he was there. Nick Van Exel, that seems kind of weird. The other ones made sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, Chauncey played what I think between his 2 stints, it was like
right. He was at a lot of places, but he went to high school there, so that's why.
Yeah, and Melo, like, taking them to the Western Conference Finals, like being all-star. It definitely, like you said, none of them needed to necessarily leave, but Melo definitely should have been added in there. And of course, I was like, we'll welcome him. It's always this hindsight is 2020, because I was like, oh, the New York Knicks run a graphic with him on it for greatest Knick of all time, and I'm like, well, we didn't really treat him that great when he was here. So I was like, love you now type thing.
I love you.
Next up, so D Wade was just casually walking on the beach, and he happened to be in the background of someone's photo, and I was like, oh,
cool.
Why doesn't this shit happen to me? So here's D Wade, and then D Wade comes up. And I mean, the zoom in, it's like a tale in 3 stories. And D Wade is the ultimate meme. If you could just search D Wade on like GIF, he's always a meme. And this one is just like, this is me when I, see that Popeyes gave me extra spicy chicken. Like, it's just like, oh my God, thank you. And
really, Adena? That's what it takes?
That's what it takes. Or when
that's so cool right there. I love that.
I know. I was like, all I want to know, I need the follow-up story. When's the wedding? Is D Wade coming to the wedding? Like, that's all I need.
And she's showing off her ring. That's cool.
Exactly, right. I wish he had a ring. But yeah, so I can't wait for the follow-up story when the wedding is. Next up is everyone's favorite Zuri, my girl, actually my best friend in my head. We could be friends. So Zuri's living better than most of us, and so I'll show you why.
So this is outside the house. And then this little girl has the nerve to have her own house. Are you doing school? Are you doing school from your crib? How your house look just like the big house though?
Not quite.
It looks like a what?
Dude, I said, wait till you see inside. I was like,
What, you got a little break from school right
this
now?
house is like
That's hilarious.
$1,000 a month without utilities included.
You got your what?
I got my new house.
Yo.
Can I sit down on your couch? Appreciate it.
Let's go around.
I appreciate it.
Kitchen, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
The breakfast table, that's so good.
You wipe me your floor. Oh, my bad. I got your floor dirty.
I'm sure. Tell me you didn't have an apartment that like was probably a little bit smaller than this.
Oh, for sure. Right.
I feel like we all have, but like, yeah, just let me over, invite me. If you're looking for a renter, Zuri, like, it's cool. I'm here. We're open. Then there was also this Marcus Smart article that Henry, you tweeted like right before the show. And, I was reading it. The title is This Isn't About Basketball. And, check it out in Players Tribune if you can. And it started off, COVID and how tough the season was. I was like, yes, this is, okay, we're talking about his experience with COVID. And then it's like, racism. And the part that it gets to, and I mean, like we've always said before, there are two pandemics we're fighting, COVID-19 and the pandemic is racism. And so Marcus Smart goes in to talk about discrimination and racial profiling and how he's experienced it so many times in his life as an NBA player. And he casually mentions, he goes on to say about a lot of times where he experienced it. And then he says, I can go when he's been riding in his car. But he said there are several times, including stuff that's happened right inside NBA arenas.
Ding,
and we're
ding,
like,
ding.
Which ones? And I'm like, let's go back to some footage in Utah, maybe, or wherever. And being part of the Boston Celtics, he kind of, talks about a moment that seems very quintessential Boston. So he says an incident that struck with him the most, had the biggest impact on him, was after a victory on his home court. He's pulling out of the arena. He sees a white woman with her 5 or 6-year-old. They're crossing the light and the cars are starting to come at them. And he had his windows down and realized that like maybe they might get hit by a car. He said the woman was wearing Isaiah Thomas, number 4 Celtics jersey. So he was like, oh, this is a Celtics fan. And he says, I yelled something out the window to make her aware of what was going to happen. She swung her head around and she yelled, fuck you, you fucking nigger. And it's like, wow. He says the incident struck with him the most and had the biggest impact with him because at that point in time, he was made to feel less human. He was nothing but a form of entertainment. It didn't really specify like whether this was before the game or after the game, but
I think it was after. I said after a victory, I thought.
Oh, after.
Yeah,
So he had just finished watching him play and cheering for him, but right outside the arena, he's nothing but this to her. And then he talked about inside of NBA arenas, but he also talked about an incident in college, Henry, that you pulled up.
Yeah.
And we'll show it.
It's
here.
a famous story, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just show it again. And like, it's obvious. Sorry, he folded.
We're on the road at Texas Tech.
And a technical foul.
And he goes on to say, I mean, the announcer goes on to say, like Henry highlighted, in his tweet, that the announcer's like, this was disgusting. And the ironic thing is, I didn't see that live, but whenever I'm with my friends and we see something like this happen, we're like, oh, he was probably called boy or nigger, like point blank period. Like You don't just pop off out of nowhere. And even it happens in the NFL a lot. And you just think about how are you to contain yourself? Was that person right to do what they did, meeting the player? And I'll always side with the player in that instance because you're just human. You're in the middle of a battle and this happens. But, shout out to Marcus Smart for highlighting that and bringing that to the table for us to all know right now.
And thank you for including it, Adena. I know it was like that particular moment has all like I was at ESPN then, and he was coming into the draft, and basically Marcus Smart rated as an excellent player, but he had a character issue, right? Like,
oh yeah,
like he was gonna fall, and then this moment was this was his brand, was this moment, right? He's done all this hard work, and in real time, well, shout out to Chad Ford, who is very close and tied into Team USA.
Mhm.
And Chad was like, a team, and Marcus Smart had been very involved in Team USA from a young age. And Chad was like, look, their thing isn't just that Marcus Smart is a good guy. Like, he's the best guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's like the best one they've ever had. Like, and then, so, and other people had similar stories. And now it's like totally borne out, even in this thing where he's like donating his plasma early in the pandemic when no one else did. And I just feel like, okay, so let's say that your loved one, family member is the best one, like just a saint, and someone calls them the N-word. What are they supposed to do? Like, what's the move? Like, what is the proper channel? I'm like, he just had like a moment of, I guess what we would expect is normal.
Yeah,
and the refs, the commentators, the fans, everybody knows he's bad. It's like, what the fuck is this system, right?
they know it instantly. I mean, if I'm in the supermarket and someone does it to me, and I'm not in the middle of a game, fighting for a championship, and all my everything's elevated, right? And and I'm on the road, and everyone's against me, I'm gonna push back in the supermarket, and that happens. And just, it's unfortunate. And I don't know, did it come out like right after word what was said? Probably not, because that's why you still continually get labeled the bad guy. Well,
somehow interpreting, he sort of resolutely would not tell the story. There are people who wrote a lot about that incident. Actually, Baxter Holmes wrote, when he worked for the Boston Globe, wrote like a big story about it, where Marcus stopped short of saying what the man said, and I think said that he never would. And to be totally clear, in today's article, he said that he was called the N-word by a fan in college. He didn't say it was this one.
Right.
But like, he still has plausibly denied it. But yeah, I think I always felt like the other sources, the whisperers, people who knew were like, yeah, that's what happened. So I always felt like I felt upset the way that the system so quickly knows who's good and who's bad in this environment. And just felt like, that's on us, right? Like how the media handles that is on us.
It reminds me of a lot of times in my career where I've been, I make one stance and ask for one thing. I remember I was an intern at ESPN The Mag, and I just graduated from a top 15 school in the nation in journalism, and I was like getting batteries and bagels. And I get it, interns do that, right? But I asked to do a bit more because I graduated, and I asked my supervisor to do a bit more, and I like instantly was chastised. I got like labeled as the problem intern. I was like about to be fired and I got transferred from the multimedia department into editorial, and I was like fact checking college football encyclopedias for the rest of my life until my knuckles bled.
I'm sorry.
And to this day, you think about when you stand up and speak, when you have something to say that is in opposition, you worry about being labeled the bad guy, right? And I mean, I didn't push nobody in a crowd, but it's always saying like you gotta be twice as good, to get half as far.
Well, and I think the little bit of like the cell phone revolution is why we're learning a lot of things now, right? Like,
correct.
That person happens not to have been recorded, but like might have been, right? Like, and I think this is the reason we're kind of learning. The reason white people are learning about this now, right? Is like some of it's on tape, right? Some of it's on tape.
Yes,
it's harder to argue when you see it on video. It's just like, initially when Jane Goodall said that animals could use tools, and that was so anti-religious, right? And they said, you got to prove it. You got to show chimpanzees using, sticks to draw termites. Well, now otters are using rocks to break clams, and birds are doing it, and fish are doing it because everyone has a camera.
Yeah.
So seeing all this evidence, it's not like the animals learned this last week. Okay, it's fair to say this has been happening for a long time, and now we're starting to see it. And the other thing I want to say regarding the Marcus Smart thing is, way back when I was in school in the 80s, a student seating at University of Florida was first come, first serve. So And I was friends with some guys in the team, and the head manager was is still a lifelong friend of mine. And so we would go, right, there was nothing else to do. Football sucked that year. So we would go to the basketball games early. And it was my brother and I and some buddies of mine. And we'd sit front row. Like we saw Dick Vitale. We would talk to Dick Vitale before he was all that famous. This was like, 85. He was just starting to and Florida wasn't so great. We were okay. So
David, you've never aged yourself more than saying Dick Vitale before he was famous.
Yeah, I'm happy. What am I gonna do? I'm 55. So he would go, and sure enough, and to me, like I used to sometimes the night before games, the road team, we'd see them out, and I didn't know them then. I didn't know basketball people like I do now. But we'd have some beers or whatever with the guys. We went out with Mel Turpin and Sam Bowie one year. In fact, we got him super drunk, so drunk that Mel Turpin couldn't play the next day, and they called it a stomach flu. Fuck no. He was drinking at our place till 3 a.m. That's why he didn't play that night. And we upset the number one team. That's another story. Kenny Skywalker, by the way. Remember Kenny Skywalker?
Yes.
So, but when some of our fans would scream at these guys like they were not human beings, it just was so uncomfortable to me. And it took me a few games before I just said, that's not going to happen here. I don't remember them using the N-word, but they said terrible things. And there was no reason for it. It's basketball. Like, what are we doing? Like after the game, before the game, they're just dudes that you would love to hang out with. And I know these motherfuckers would love to say they had a beer with so-and-so.
Oh, yeah.
But they lose their minds during games. This is not just college kids. These grown people at football games and basketball games. And so those of us that know better, we have to speak up. And your point, Adena, which is terrific, is it comes at a cost sometimes for many of you, especially business related. And it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Because if all of us speak up, they'll just shut their damn mouths.
Yep. Shout out to the one person who did stand up for me. He's like black guy. He was in HR and he's still my friend to this day. And he was just like, I know Adena was, because of course they made me seem like I came and it was like, I'm smart, y'all, and this ain't right. Like, and I had all this neck, and I looked at the ground, was like, I was just wondering if I could maybe, copy edit an article or two. But he stood up for me and was like, no, this isn't Adena, and Adena is worthy of being here. And like you said, we all need that one person. But I feel like I'm on my therapist's couch right now.
Yeah, good.
Stuff.
Good. Get it all out.
Yeah. But thanks for listening, guys.
So we all have to speak up.
Yes, we do. Thanks for listening.
Okay, we have a lot to talk about, and I draw it up to you if you'd like to join us or not at this portion of the show. While he's deciding that with Judy, I will introduce the concept of the show here. So it's just Daryl Morey has left the Rockets. They don't have a lot of picks. They have a lot of giant salaries and not a great ability to win a championship. So the notion is like, maybe they need to think outside the box with their new leader, Rafael Stone, and figure out if they're going to make a big trade. David was texting us very thoughtful James Harden proposals over the weekend. And it struck me like, okay, let's take a minute at this and do the little brainstorming. I even have this, the CIA, How to Think Like a CIA Analyst book that's amazing. Has basically the brainstorming phase is an important part of coming up with like the smartest way ahead. So, and in that vein, I did a little, do you mind showing that table that I think you made about the likelihood to win the West? Okay, this is just to win the West. Lakers 30%, seems great, but that means they're 2/3 likely not to win the West, right? And then go on down the road here, Clippers and Warriors, maybe they're happy with these odds, but then you get down to like, we all think the Jazz are really good, or the Thunder, 2.6% likely to win the West. Like, I guess my thought is it's going to make a lot of sense that everybody here won't. Also, by the way, high expectation teams like the Rockets, Jazz, Pelicans, Thunder, very likely to miss the playoffs entirely, right? So to me, I think it's not crazy to fire up the trade machine now and imagine that somebody, like some team that has some great player might ditch that player now. And like save their cap space and their dollars and their draft picks for another day. Anyway, so this is the game we're going to play today is what are some fun ideas? And David is a world champion of coming up with fun ideas for this kind of stuff. So David, why don't you take over a little bit?
Well, I mean, I want to hear what you guys have to say. All of you have to say when I think about James Harden, for example, and I did text with Daryl over the weekend. We didn't talk about James Harden trades. He doesn't want to, I'm quite sure. He was very delightful. And he's going to be just fine. I think we all know he's going to be fine. I don't know where his best, like who would want him the most. So that's what I was trying to think, because James Harden that isn't really fired up to be somewhere is not a nice thought to have, right? He needs to have total buy-in. So to me, I started thinking about, okay, which team most could use him, or in their minds. Now, I'm not saying I like any of these deals, but in their minds, who most could use him, and where might he also be like, okay, I could win there. And so to me, the two most obvious ones were the Clippers and the Sixers. I thought in both cases, there was an argument for the high-level primary scoring guard to go with Paul and Kawhi, and of course, possibly even trade Paul, because now you still have Harden and Kawhi if you're Lawrence Frank with the Clippers. And then the Sixers, the Harden-Embiid combination, he's certainly the antithesis in many respects of a Ben Simmons. He's an elite scorer, nothing close to a defensive player, tons of experience in playoffs. And so I played with it, and if you guys want to show the links, you can. But basically, I just showed some deals that could work. I didn't even think about draft picks. First of all, Houston doesn't have that much, I think, to deal with. I didn't look into details, but those are always negotiable. You got to get the salaries to match more or less. So, and then I try to do one where both teams would win. The idea would be that the Rockets would feel like, for example, we think of the Clippers as this salary dominating team with Kawhi and Paul George, but they're loaded with talent. Montrezl Harrell's a free agent. I don't know what he's going to do, but they've got some good young players, including a second-round pick in Terrence Mann, who is an excellent prospect. I've had teams tell me they tried to trade for him this year. He didn't play much for the Clippers, and the Clippers said he's unmovable, which only means you didn't offer good enough. But he looks like he's going to be a keeper. Kabongele was a lottery pick from Florida State. Actually, both guys are from Florida State, who played G League all year. He's a very talented player, big, strong guy that's got skills. Landry Shamit's there. Like, they've got good players. So if the Rockets could clean out their house, kind of like the way the Pelicans cleaned out the Lakers' house regarding the AD trade, I can see the Rockets wanting to do that, and they're not going to win a championship next year. They're not going to win it anyway, which I think Henry's point, right? Henry, you're saying they're not going to win anyway. You might as well start looking at a long-term view, and you're not going to be terrible. If the Rockets trade hard and get those guys back, you're not going to be terrible.
Yeah, there's this little line Daryl Morey told Zach Lowe, which is if you have a 5% likelihood of winning the title, you should go all in. So the question is, like, when do you trade away your draft picks, right? So that would be the Lakers. Remember, these odds that we had up earlier were the Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, and conceivably Nuggets would be in that phase. Everybody else would not be in that phase, right?
Right.
The Rockets would be about 3.5%. I don't know that every other team uses that measure, but it's like, you're just not winning the title. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, it's not a plan. Like, if you have a 3-point, who are we talking about here? If you're the Pelicans, say, right, 3.2% chance of winning the West, like, why are you going to pay Drew Holiday all of a sudden, right? It's just not, like, anyway.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it seems like if you're an NBA franchise, right, like, you're not good at all things. I am not also a number one destination for free agents. I'm not also very good at draft picking. I'm not also very good at identifying G League talent. I'm not also good at talent development, right? Like, most teams aren't good at all of those things. Actually, probably no team. I guess the closest team over the past several years has been San Antonio, checking all those boxes, and they're not really a free agency destination, right? Although they did get some people, but not like the top guys. And so
they re-signed Tim Duncan when he could have left. That was their big accomplishment.
That was their biggest one, right? But they drafted him, and he had some equity built up, and this was a little bit different. If you're a team like the Warriors, right? You got the number 2 pick, and you have a 32-year-old Steph Curry, a 27, 8-year-old Clay, and Draymond somewhere in that range. I don't have time to worry about James Wiseman getting good at basketball, right? Or whoever I get number 2. I have to get somebody who I know is already good now. So it's, all right, what can I move to get someone to move up here to play with these guys to maximize my, 2-3 year window I have left, maybe something like that. If you're the Nuggets, though, it's interesting. What were they at? 20-something%, or were they less than that?
The Nuggets are 10% to win the West.
10, okay. So I have Jokic and Murray, who we all think are fabulous. I probably need a third guy. do I want to get rid of Michael Porter Jr., Bol salary? Like it's this weird calculus you have to draw. And it's like, maybe to get you up to what, from 10 to 18%? Like, is that worth it? I don't know. And this is why these guys get paid millions of dollars, right? Because they have to make this decision and figure out, is this worth it or not? If I'm Denver, do I make a move? Because I'm not a free agent destination place, I don't think. So maybe.
Gerard, Bilal had the question, what about Miami? Like, do they check these boxes?
They're close, right? They're pretty close because they do the free agency. I mean, who's going to live in South Beach? Hello. Talent development, yes, right? Now, in terms of talent development, we've seen it. And are they good at identifying certain things in the draft and picking? Yeah, they're pretty good at that. Miami's getting there, but Miami has a but, and their but is, do you want to roll with the Pat Riley way of playing basketball, which is we take conditioning very seriously here. We practice hard down here, right? Like you have to, if you don't want to roll with that, like that may not be for you, right? A lot of good free agents, but they may not all want to have Jimmy hollering at them in practice. See Cat and Andrew Wiggins, right? Or Ben Simmons, whoever. So yeah, I mean, they could, but it's the right kind of person has to want to go to Miami. So.
And Randy out here repping, he was like, the Knicks are bad at all of those. Like finally something we can check every box.
Yes, Knicks check. And they're bad at all box. So
just the wrong box.
Just the wrong box. I think there's something else we should consider too, which is what we saw in the NBA Finals specifically. We can name the names: Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Alex Caruso, Rajon Rondo, Markieff Morris, Dwight Howard. Those were bums that are in other people's minds. Bums, guys that can't play in the league, G League players, veterans that had aged out, buyout candidates, and they all were huge when it mattered most. So to your point, Gerard, regarding, let's say, a team like Denver, I think it's a mistake to think the third guy mentality that all started with the Spurs and then Miami, the three got right. Denver gave the LA fits and we're missing their starting three man and Will Barton. And who couldn't use a super athletic, high energy guy against that team, right? I think that teams, I like what Henry, I've talked about this a lot. You need to have a couple of talented guys. You nailed it, Gerard. Murray and Jokic, if they can do it again, which I have no idea. They've only done it once, but it was pretty glorious when they did it. If they can do it again, I don't love Michael Porter Jr. like you do, but I certainly can't say he can't get there. He's just got to learn how to play smartly. He doesn't know how to play smart right now. He's got a chance. A year ago, I didn't have Miami ranked high. I didn't see this for Bam. I didn't watch the Heat enough. It's my fault. They clearly saw something and developed and built a system to best utilize what that dude can do, just like Denver did with Jokic, right? And Portland has taken advantage of Jokic, and I love these names. Jokic and Nurkic. That's how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to mold your design systems around the talents of your players. Denver's got a lot of guys. They could probably package some and upgrade in one position. I'm not sure that's the smartest thing. And I realize the Lakers got away with it because of who they had, the best duo out there. But Miami, who gave the LA everything they could want without their leading scorer in the postseason, right? And with Bam out for a half a game and injured for a couple games, they didn't do it that way. They did it very differently. One free agent, and then one star free agent, and then draft picks, G League. They wisely used the G League. This is where, and it's going to sound like a homer, but it's topical. The Lightning won the Stanley Cup and have the best farm franchise, they say, in hockey. So do the Rays, one of the best. There's a few baseball teams. The Rays are in the World Series now against the Dodgers, who probably have 4 times the payroll. Guess what? Every NBA team has a G League team now, except for Denver and Portland. That should change. You can develop your players more. In the age of COVID, you should be. You should be developing your players more. Your money is going to be shrinking, at least for a year, I would think, right? Going back to Henry's thing about the $2 billion and everything. So in my opinion, if I'm a team like Houston, I'm telling James, hey, we're going to try to trade you. We know you need to really want to be somewhere. What are teams you're thinking about? We've got to stay super quiet. but we're going to start conversations about it. How you handle Russell, I don't know.
Yeah.
Harden is easy to trade. Getting back what you need is a different story, but the Clippers and the Clippers have more young talent that can develop. The Sixers have Ben Simmons. So I don't love Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook together, but do you guys think it's crazy to think you should?
David, can you talk about this one?
Yeah. So it's Josh Richardson, Ben Simmons, and Matisse Thybulle for Patrick Beverly and Kawhi. Yeah, that was another one I played with. Oh, here's why on Kawhi. So if these are made up things, obviously, I have no idea. I'm not reporting that they're going to trade Kawhi, but I would sit down with Kawhi and say, okay, what are you in this for? Give me an odds that you're going to come here no matter what happens next year, because we may not win it next year. We're not even favored to win. The Lakers are. We're going to be in the running for sure. And if it's anything less than 99%, then I have to trade you, because that team is going to be dead for 5 years if they're stuck with him and Paul George this year. Dead. Even if they win a championship. Is it worth winning a championship and being back to being the worst again for 5 years? No, I want guarantees you're coming back.
Well, that's the question, right? And Henry, you talked about this when we were doing our GOAT conversation. The vast majority of players and franchises are never going to advance to a conference finals or an NBA finals. That's just how the math works.
Numbers are bad.
Right? So what, like, to Coach's point, is it worth it to roll the dice to win one chip, and then whatever, and then disaster strikes? Or is it, hey, look, we're just going to keep drafting, keep building through young, and we're going to be a consistent 48 to 55 win team. And on some years, the high end, we get lucky, things break our way. Ooh, like when Portland, and this is not a knock at the Blazers, Henry, but when Portland made their
I'm already mad. I don't even know what you're going to say. I'm already mad.
When Portland made their run to the conference finals last year, right? The bracket broke right for them. Sometimes you'll get that. But more often than not, if everything works out, you're probably not going to make it that far. As a fan, a fan base, are you happy with that?
So there's one little tidbit here, which I think is super important. Check me on this, but I'm told from people who've looked into it like crazy thoroughly. No one's ever won a championship by adding expensive market value, top dollar players to a mediocre team. So the coin is like, do you have a 50-win team, a 55-win team? Then okay, maybe now we do what you're talking about. Maybe now we mortgage our future for right now. But you don't do it with a 40-win team, right? You don't, because basically to have this is a stupid little analysis that someone told me like more than a decade ago, but I still think it's right, which is basically you win a championship by having, let's make it up, but a team that's actually worth something like $180 million that you pay $120 million to. So you have to have these max players, are like LeBron is probably worth 50 million and he's only making whatever he's making now. Was it 39 or whatever? So you just got 11 million in value there. Rookie contract players can be, if they can contribute, etc. But if you're at the point where you're just adding full market value players, which is the only kind of player you get in free agency, then you can't do the math, right? It's very unlikely. So I think this is the thing, is like, this is where I'm looking at this list of teams in the West. And I think you could easily convince yourself, if you're the Pelicans, the Thunder, the Blazers, the Rockets, that you might be at that point where you're a 50-ish win team now. You really might be. But are you going to you're going to be in a pack at best, right? And you're not very likely to make the conference finals, right? Let alone the championship. So I just can't see. I really feel for the Nuggets right here. They're probably the best team that's maybe you guys are screwed already.
And I think too, the thing that we can't sort of quantify is the culture and the built-in equity that those core guys have together, right? That means and matters and means something. That's why they were able to overcome a 3-1 deficit versus the put together Clippers, right? Murray and Jokic have that, hey, we've been here for 4 years together. So that sort of development and that piece of it matters. A team that we look at that I think really they've made the decision. And in the moment, I killed Presti for the Harden trade just because I'm like, look, you went to the finals last year. You got to run it back. But if you're looking in its totality over, and that was 2012 when they went to the finals, right? So over the last 8 years, that probably, when you look at it now, was the right thing to do, right? Because they've got a ton of capital now. And yeah, they may not win, probably likely won't win a title, but they're probably going to make the playoffs every year going forward. That's, maybe that works.
Let me jump in a couple of things there, Gerard. So just quickly on the Harden thing, Harden had to go because of what Harden wanted.
Right.
He wanted to go be the best player in the world. So that doesn't mean you couldn't have run it back and convinced him, James, one more year, but you were asking for problems by doing that. James, I mean, Kevin Martin was in that deal. We were getting feelers long before the trade that things were in the works. And we actually got a tip right when it happened. The Thunder knew it was going down. They knew it. They were totally prepared for everything. Harden wanted to go see if he could be the best player in the world. That's one thing. On the odds thing, Henry, I don't gamble on games, but Denver is a hell of a bet if those are the odds. Like you're going to get great odds to put down $1,000, $10,000, whatever, if you were so inclined, because that team should just get better. Obviously, injuries and shit happens. Jokic could gain 50 pounds. Murray could gain 50 pounds. But if they don't, we saw with our own eyes, and I'm a big believer that you need to feel pain before you can win. We saw what Denver was able to do. We saw Jokic rise to the occasion marvelously, and we saw Murray do it, and we saw it multiple times, and they weren't at full strength. And then with Gary Harris, they were down 3-1 when Harris came back. So I like that. But the last thing I'll say just on the subject is, and I've said this before in a different way, I think of this discussion that Henry and I have had a million times on the phone. I think of it like a putting, Henry. If I told you you're going to get 10 putts and all 10, you're going to get the speed right and the direction right, and there's no guarantee you'll make it, but you're going to be around the hole all 10. Or the other guy is going to have 1 or 2 putts that are going to be super, super good, and the other is fucked up. I know which putter I want to be. I want to be the one that gets a chance to be right there all 10 times. I'm going to give luck a chance to happen that many times. And yeah, if you have AD and LeBron, Henry's point is when you're at that level, because you have those players, then you maybe do a little bit more, but not at the expense of getting 10 good putts. That's the mistake I think we found with the Clippers, Henry, right? Is they went for those 2 amazing putts and fuck everything else. And now they're down to 1 putt. And there's not even a guarantee that we're not going to have Paul or Kawhi complain mid-season that it's not working out, whatever. And they have a new coach, right? So give me the team that doesn't sacrifice 8 putts for 2.
Coach,
I think that's general. I totally agree with you. However, like, before I'm going to bet on the Nuggets, I'm not a gambler either, but to your point, like, okay, here's a team that just had a great playoff run, has some youth, has a candidate for MVP, et cetera, and I have a generalized experience of the NBA through my life where I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good bet. On the other hand, now, which is not common, right? That means Steph Curry lost. That means LeBron James lost. And with Anthony Davis, that means Kawhi Leonard and whatever we think the Clippers are like. And it means that of Luka and Damian Lillard, and like, it means all of these other people didn't have a magical run. Like, it just, suddenly I'm like, maybe we already know it's not going to work. Like, it's just all of those things coming together that's just to win the West. It's just like Miami has a whole different story because they had a pretty good run and won the East because of it, because the East is not the West, right?
Right.
That same team in the West is just like, you're not winning, you know?
Yeah. That's why their odds are so far down in the West to begin with. It's just so hard to get out of the West. But if you're in these kind of situations, you're looking for amazing odds that can sum up, you wouldn't bet on Minnesota, who's getting the best odds of all. Like they're the lowest ranked team that I think has a chance to win. I like Utah very much, but not to win it all. Denver's, because of Jokic especially, I think is good enough to win it all, and you're getting good odds for it.
What about the little mental exercise? Just indulge me. Jokic and Harden.
Jokic and Harden?
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm Denver, there's no way I would do it.
There you go.
Yeah. Would you?
Well, I mean, if we decide that we're at, less than 1% with this roster makeup, and to be honest, Jamal Murray's been like never great for a season. He's
inconsistent. He's been inconsistent. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So I assume he'll improve and it'll be wonderful. But, if Houston is basically in the position of wanting to be younger and cheaper and you can get James Harden for it. I think you have to at least do the exercise.
If I'm Houston, oh hell yeah. There's a whole bunch of guys I love to do, but if I'm Denver to trade that dude, I mean Murray is a different argument. Like if Murray's part of the deal, I think they would actually. I think they would trade Jamal Murray.
I'm talking about Jokic playing with Harden.
Oh, yes. Yeah, again, if you could, I'm sorry, I thought you'd trade.
I thought it was the other way around also.
If you could trade Murray and Barton and Michael Porter Jr. To get Harden with Jokic, yeah, because as long as you have Jokic and a few other young guys, and again, the having young talent has never been less valuable from this point of view. There's so many. So as long as you've got more in the pipeline, you can move some. Michael Porter Jr. is not, he's an exception. He might be able to score 20. He might. No, I meant in a good way. No, Gerard, I meant in a good way. He could. Yeah, he could end up being a really good scorer. There's a lot of other guys that are about the same no matter what. But as long as you have Jokic, you're always going to be plus 40. 40 wins, 42, 44 with nobody else. Right? G League guys in Jokic are winning you 40 games.
Yeah,
he's that good of a player.
I like the Harden Jokic combo. If I was Denver and Houston's calling me though, if I'm Houston, Michael Porter Jr. is absolutely part of this deal. That's
for sure.
But if I'm Denver, I'm like, maybe not.
And James may not like it because Jokic, when Jokic plays, we call it where I'm and my teams that I help out, we call it jazz. Jazz is following your pass for a handoff or a fake handoff. That's the action. We literally, if I call jazz out loud, it means nearest guy, show your hands. This is screen, one fist up at screen. This is throw me the ball. We're playing jazz. I'm going to give it back to you. Or I'm going to fake and go. Tyler Hero plays jazz with Bam Adebayo all the time because Tyler just can't shake and bake you so easily yet. Maybe one day he'll be able to. But like the old school days of the 70s and 80s, he's playing without the ball, give and go. And dribble handoff's the toughest action to guard in sports, right? For basketball, the toughest action to guard. And that's why teams use it all the time. So, but Harden doesn't want to play jazz. So you've got to get buy-in from James saying, hey, if you just want to play iso ball, that's not the best way to use Jokic. He can stretch the floor, but then we're not getting all the value from him, right? Yeah. But in theory, and James Harden used to play jazz. He used to also play just easy give and go basketball and just move the ball basketball, right? When he played for OKC, he was genius at it. He still could be. He's an amazing assist guy, as we know. He just wants to dribble 8 times first. But yeah, he's a guy. But I like Philly and the Clippers. Both to me are potential destinations where both teams feel like they could win that trade or come out fine in the trade.
I will say Philly and Houston to me are the teams best equipped, I think, based on what they have to get back some talent and also still be good and compete, especially on Philly's side, but also reserve, build up that stockpile of younger assets and get things that they need because, Ben Simmons is still very valuable. Joel Embiid is still very valuable. James Harden is valuable. The Russell Westbrook contract, probably a little harder to trade, but you can find, although there is the Knicks. So there's always.
I honestly, I tried that, Gerard. I tried a Westbrook to Knicks because they're dumb enough to, I'm sure I've tried it too.
Yeah.
They'd have to trade their whole roster and the entire maintenance staff
and
all their vendors. They just it's so hard. It makes
you have some pretty pricey vendors. There is
it's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But tell me if I'm wrong. The Sixers haven't hired a coach, have they?
No.
So
Sixers have no coach. Houston has no coach. Indiana hired their coach.
Oh wait, the Sixers did hire Doc, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, Doc.
Oh, that's right. He is Doc. That's right.
Thanks, Bob.
That's right.
Indiana didn't hire a coach yet, right? No, I don't think.
No, but if Doc, no, they haven't. If Doc wanted to play the way James wants to play, Doc will know get the ball inside a little bit too. That would be. I think that's got some legs to it. I know they talked about CP3 there in Milwaukee. I think OKC is the most interesting one of all.
Well, they have all the capital and everything. They got it all.
Because honestly, I hope they do nothing.
They don't need to.
And I actually, a year ago, we might have even written this at TrueHoop. I made a suggestion that maybe Orlando gets CP3 and says, hey man, you're going to be the face of our franchise. We're going to make the playoffs with you. I don't know if we're ever win a championship, but you're gonna build roots here in a way you did initially in New Orleans, and we're gonna get you as close as we can. We have so much young talent, whatever, especially in the deal that I put together in this trade. They can do the same thing in OKC and say, hey, I don't know if we're going to get there, but we were really good last year and we're so young. All of our guys are going to get better except for you, probably. He was still incredible. Steven Adams will get better, but you can also move him. There'll be a team that wants to with how Jokic. This is something else that maybe we'll write about one day, Henry, in the offseason, because of AD and Jokic in the West specifically, and Gobert, who had a great season in Utah. You need to have a big guy. And so I could see some teams wanting to do a deal to make sure they have Zubac. I mean, Zubac is fine in the Clippers. He's good, and he's getting better. He's very young. You could maybe trade Adams to a team that feels like we need that. Karl-Anthony Towns obviously is already in the West. OKC with those young players and CP3. I mean, if they made the Final Four next year, I wouldn't be shocked, or the Final Eight. I wouldn't be shocked.
What about so it strikes me that some of the opportunities are really good players on teams that have not great odds of competing. Right. So Drew Holiday, Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, they have a big decision coming up on. Do you think there's any chance those guys move?
I do not.
Drew, I think for sure.
You think who?
I think Drew Holiday for sure.
Oh, yeah. Drew, yes. Rudy, no. I shouldn't say no. I think it's less likely. As long as Rudy and Donovan and Rudy seem to get along fine in the bubble. Drew, I think I played with it a lot today. Yeah. You could almost put him anywhere.
Does he go back to Philly? Does that work?
For Ben Simmons? Because I don't love Ben and Zion.
Yeah.
They play the same position, except one of them's just a more ball dominant than the other, but the other wants to be that ball dominating.
But if you're Henry running Philly, it's not Ben you're moving, it's Embiid you're moving.
Oh hell yeah.
Sure. I agree, but they're not going to do it.
Somehow Drew, it could never happen, but Drew Holiday on these Lakers would be absolutely perfect, right? Like
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how. I just don't think the Lakers don't have enough.
No,
their young players were the guys that did well for them have no value that way for the Pelicans. Yeah. It's listen, we'll see. I mean, the free agency is going to be a big deal, like it always is. It's going to be. The West is such a bear. To me, the Warriors ranked where they are in your odds. That seemed ambitious to me. I looked at them today in a league dominant in a West that's got some incredible big men. I'm a little worried about Kevon Looney as your starting five, and I love Looney.
Right.
Klay Thompson's 30, coming off the ACL. Right. I love the Warriors, but I think they have to do a deal too, and I think they're going to try to find a center. Maybe.
So they have this very high pick, and how do you get it? It's hard to get a center.
You just answered your question. He doesn't have to be a great scoring center. He's got to be a guy that can really.
Who could it be though? For real,
I don't know, but we'll have to think about that. But Weissman, that number 2 pick, has real value for the deal you just talked about, is acquiring the big guy, right? That's got to be how they play it. Unless they think that, like Tyler Hero, by the end of the season, he'll be able to help us defensively anyway, which is where I think they need the most help.
The 2 pick and Wiggins.
Yeah, absolutely could be. Yeah.
But for someone has to really have that. There just aren't those players, right? Either they make $30 million.
Mitchell Robinson is interesting. Speaking of the Knicks, there's a reason why the bad teams always get called, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever's running the Knicks is on everyone's speed dial for sure. Daryl Morey may call them, even though he's not working right now.
So before we go, I said this in the chat, but Coach made 3 other sports references today, and I was like,
he did.
I love
really.
Yeah, you're so diversified. It's incredible. Tampa Bay Lightning, the Rays, and golf.
Well done.
Well done. Weaving it all in there. TrueHoop.
I don't even watch those sports.
When you say those things, I don't even listen. The words don't even go in my head. I'm like, what?
The one sport I know people never mention is football, though. He's just like,
I don't watch it. Yeah.
All right.
I love baseball.
We're about to get in legal trouble, everybody. So thank you for an enjoyable show.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Adena. Thank you, Gerard.
Be safe,